Hi, Pops.
Hi, Darren.
Or should I say, Merry Christmas, Pops?
Merry Christmas, Darren.
Or should I say, ho, 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 Merry Christmas?
Merry Christmas, Darren.
Well, hey, guess what? This is our third episode of the Hi Pops podcast and our very first Christmas episode because it is Christmas time.
It is.
'Tis the season.
'Tis the season to make Christmas episodes, apparently.
Yeah, you got to do it, man. You got to. It's tradition, and you know, Christmas is all about tradition.
That is so true.
So you've been busy getting ready for Christmas, or still got lots to do?
I have been I've been an Uber rapper.
Yeah.
I wrapped 22 presents before we came to Boise.
So are you an expert gift wrapper?
I am an expert, and I have. I'm going to up my game. I watched a video on Japanese gift wrapping.
Did you really?
Oh my gosh! I'm going to learn how to be better. Yet. They are amazing.
Awesome. I don't need the gift. Just send me an empty box with the wrapping.
That's almost what it's like in Japan. The wrapping is sometimes worth more than the gift.
More ornate than that. Do you do the whole? Now, do you do the whole bows thing? Like, do you get like really extravagant or?
No, I rarely do that. I just like wrapping it with precision.
With precision. Have you ever, like, while wrapping a gift, inadvertently, made an airplane?
What an idea.
Oh, shoot, I forgot what I was doing. I was supposed to be wrapping a gift, but look at this boss airplane.
That's right. Now you got me thinking. Yeah.
Now we might have something there. Or better yet, you do the wrapping, and inside is a folded up paper airplane, a Boss paper airplane inside the box. That's the gift.
Made out of the wrapping paper. Yes.
Yeah. All fancy Japanese style.
Yes. Oh, I just can't get over how they do it. Oh wow. And some of the wrapping they do, it often has no tape.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask.
Yeah.
Because like when you see the really good ones, you can't even see where the Scotch tape is. It's just flawless.
That's true.
Flawless.
It's an art.
So what else have you been doing this Christmas season? You've been doing anything to get into the spirit? Watching any Christmas movies?
No, and I haven't even watched any Christmas movies. Do you remember, as a family, did we ever watch Christmas movies?
I don't know. I'm sure we did, but I don't remember any, traditional ones.
Did we not at least watch Christmas Story together? That seems like the obvious one.
Well, I'm sure we did. I mean, back then during the cable era when there was no internet streaming, I feel like they just ran it back to back for like 72 hours straight when it came to close to Christmas.
That's true. I mean, we had VHS machines, but I'm not sure we had the video. And so you were a little bit at the mercy of when the networks were going to show a Christmas movie.
True.
And I'm not sure about the existence of a Hallmark channel back in those days, but still.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you remember us watching a particular Christmas movie? Was it a tradition?
I actually don't, but I thought we had probably watched The Christmas Story.
Is that one of your favorites? Is The Christmas Story?
I like it. I don't know if it's my favorite or not. But
no.
It certainly has a following.
For sure. I mean, it is a classic. I mean, all of the bits in it are so memorable. When, they get his tongue stuck on the flagpole, right?
Yes.
That's amazing.
The dogs going through the kitchen taking the turkey.
The dogs. Yeah, absolutely.
the going to the Chinese restaurant.
Fa ra 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 ra.
Yes, I didn't want to say that. But
It's,
yeah, very
yeah,
funny.
I know that's not culturally appropriate, but still cracks me up.
Exactly.
Or the part where it's like they bring out the duck and it's got the neck on it, like all
Oh,
still, and
and then
and they're like,
uh,
what's
which
what's the problem? He's like, well, it's smiling at me.
yeah, yeah,
Better.
problem solvers right there. Yeah.
Problem solved. Yeah, that was a good one. There's
So
lots of good Christmas movies though.
I'm sure we watched, even if we didn't watch that many all together as family, you probably watched plenty of Christmas movies. I have. What have been your favorites?
Well, you can't go wrong with Christmas Vacation.
Yeah.
I in fact watched it recently because like every year the season kind of comes around and it starts popping up on all the streaming devices or networks, and it popped up and I was like, yep, it's time for Christmas Vacation.
Yeah, definitely.
What is your favorite scene from Christmas Vacation? Do you have one? There's many there too.
Yeah. There's the squirrel in the tree.
The squirrel in the tree.
There's and then there's is it Cousin Eddie
Yep.
in taking care of his RV in the gutter.
In the gutter.
And the neighbors next door. Oh wow.
Oh yeah.
The poor neighbors next door.
And that was Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I mean, that was
Yes,
Elaine.
It was quite a ways before Elaine, but yes.
Quite a ways before Elaine, of course, yeah. But so many great parts there. I also love the coming together, with the Christmas lights when they flip the switch.
Oh, yeah.
And then you see like all the electric dials start just spinning as quickly as possible, and you hear the sirens for the power plants that have to go into I don't know what you call it, but they have to boost the power.
Bring up their backup nuclear power plant.
Yeah. That's a good one. I love that one. But of course, you know the best one.
I think I do.
What's the best one?
The best one was produced in 1985.
Yes, it was.
At a home in Idaho Falls on Sequoia Street, where a certain family lived and decided that they could produce one just as good as anybody else.
Easily, without question. Of course, you're referring to Black Family Christmas, 1985. Best Christmas movie ever.
That would be the one.
We were all so young when that Christmas tape was made. I mean, it's 1985. I certainly remember 1985, but that was very long ago. I'm not even going to do the math.
Yeah, and just occurred to me that would have been 11 years since we were married. So that would have been 11 year. We would celebrate our 11th anniversary that year in August.
Well, and also, we hadn't been in that Sequoia house for that long, probably 5 years. Yeah.
We moved in 1980.
Yeah. Brand new house to us, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about that Christmas movie for a little bit. It's been so long, and I was so young that I have very kind of foggy memories of it. I remember shooting it, but I don't remember like where the idea came from, like how this kind of came about. Do you remember that, or?
I don't know precisely, but I'm sure it came out of us wanting to do something, Mom and I wanting to do something special at Christmas time. And in that era, there were people with VHS cameras, but it was a little bit rare. You'd see the occasional dad at a soccer game or a basketball game, and but it was like It's almost like, oh, he must be a doctor. He's got a camera. They
Yeah.
were quite expensive.
Yeah.
And so it just because I like technology, I'm sure I said it would really be cool to make a movie, and I know where I can borrow a VHS camera.
Right. So where did you get the camera from?
Our really good friends, Charlie and Colleen Call, and in fact, we spent Christmas Eve at their house year after year after year. So we're really good friends. And anyway, they had a VHF camera. It might have even be one of those that you rest on your shoulder.
On the shoulder.
Because they were big in those days.
Yeah.
And anyway, so it was fun for me to be into that technology, and Mom to help me out with creative ideas. And I think we just thought it would be a fun thing for the family to do. So we were up for it.
Well, I think it was. I mean, I'm sure, this was kind of, like you said, it was something new. We hadn't had a whole lot of experience with home video cameras at the time. And so I even remember being extremely excited about playing with this new toy that I'd heard about but never really seen. And and I think, we were all in it. All the kids were in it for the movie. And you guys found like different ways to kind of feature us, either in groups or individually. In fact, there was like lots of little segments from the movie. Do you remember how the segments kind of came about?
I think it just evolved over, hey, what are some of the things we can do? And well, Darren and Kyle could do this, and somebody could play the piano, and we could recite a poem. We could play out a scene from the Nativity or the Bible, and just ideas came like, oh, why don't we try this? And there wasn't time really to. I mean, I'm sure we rehearsed a little. There wasn't a lot of rehearsal that went into it, and there certainly wasn't a lot of takes because of the technology back then. Pretty much ran the tape, recorded, and I think I might have been able to do a second take with difficulty by rewinding to the exact spot. But that's as good as it got for editing. So you pretty much had to just do it, and hope for the best.
So we have something like that we did kind of special for this episode, right, Dan? We
do. We found the tape and we're going to play it. No, unfortunately.
Nope. Because unfortunately, there are not many that have actually seen this Black Family Christmas 1985, because not too long after, it was lost, and we haven't been able to find it in a number of years.
That's right.
But we did get the cast together, everybody who was involved in the 1985 version, and we got them to kind of talk about it, and we put it together for this episode.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. I mean, just getting everybody together to kind of talk about what they remember from the movie. I mean, I thought it was great.
Yeah, from what I've seen so far, it's great. Everybody was happy to participate. I'm excited to see the end product.
Yep.
It'll be good.
I should also mention that, when we were kind of working through some of the details, trying to kind of resurrect some of the memories of this tape, we weren't entirely sure of the exact year, at least initially, right? Like from the beginning, we weren't entirely sure, but through kind of other conversations, I feel confident we have this pinned down. It was certainly 1985.
Yeah, I'm 100% sure now, but originally it was sometime in the 80s, maybe 86 or 87, but yeah, it's 85.
Yep, for sure. So with that, let's meet the cast.
I know exactly. It was 1985. I would have been 6.
Well, it was 1985, so I would be 2.5.
85. So I was born in 77.
Well, 1985, so 13, if my math is right.
I remember the opening scene vividly.
I remember it was hilarious.
He was in a chair reading a newspaper.
With the iconic newspaper.
And I remember that he was, he had the comics, like the Sunday comics, open in front of his face.
He was wearing a red plaid shirt and he had the big glasses.
And, like the camera zoomed in on him or whatever. And
then the camera, was just looking at the comics in his hands, basically. And then he went to turn the page. And when he did that, he went,
"Oh, hello there."
He said, "Oh, hello there."
He dropped his newspaper and was like, "Hello, I didn't see you there."
"Oh, hello there." And then he put down the comics and kind of introduced the video.
Well, I certainly remember that opening act. It's infamous at this point.
Act may be generous. It was a scene anyway.
It was a good scene. It was one of the most memorable scenes.
for better or worse.
So what do you remember about that scene? What do you remember about the opening act?
Well, I remember doing it. I don't know where the idea came from. It was probably, it's almost a generic kind of opening that you might see on a SNL or something, So it was like, it wasn't that original of an idea, but I thought, oh, well, we'll try this and see what happens. And well, the idea was that I would sit in a chair in the living room, reading my newspaper, and the newspaper would pretty much cover my face. And at one point, I would notice I was on camera or notice the presence of an audience, and I would put my paper down and say, I think I said, "Oh, well, hello there," and then go into my introduction of the movie that was to follow.
Do you have any idea what your introduction was?
No.
Yeah.
I don't. I was going to say, to say the least, it was a bit corny, and I kind of hated seeing it over the years. It was like, oh, and I got teased a little bit about it, but it was all in good fun, I suppose. But it's like, oh, I hate that. But yeah,
it was awesome. It was great corny, and it was our kind of family corny, I would say.
I suppose, yeah.
Right. And I feel like I have to add a little bit of, paint a picture a little bit more. I know it was talked about by folks just a little bit earlier, but Dad was certainly wearing the red shirt, and he had the 80s style glasses that were just so popular back then.
They're very big.
Yeah, but he also had the stash.
The stash, yes.
The 80s stash.
I often had a mustache in those days, yes.
Yeah, it was very common for men to have mustaches in the 80s, but you had it, and that was part of the compliment, I think, of the whole ensemble was the glasses, the shirt, and the stash. That's what I remember most about.
Easy to recognize the era.
Yep, for sure. What a great, memorable scene, though, from it. So the youngest of the siblings at the time would have been Carrie, and she was pretty much about 2.
She was born in May of 1983, so she'd been about 2.5.
Yep. And she was certainly the youngest, and as I recall, and I think as others recall from those memories, she certainly stole the show in a number of scenes. Yes. Probably most famously Kelly's Rockin' Robin dance that she did.
Right.
Do you remember anything about that?
Well, I do remember that Kelly was taking dance lessons, and doing dance recitals, I guess. And so she had this number that she was great at, dance number that was done to the Rockin' Robin song, and so we wanted to film that as part of the video, the movie, and Carrie wanted to be involved, and she was, I think there was some compromise that was made, but she wasn't having it. She wanted to be involved right then and there, and at least that's how I remember and what I hear from people that remember better than me. So I think that's what happened. She was just anxious to be involved, and she was very, very grumpy when she couldn't be.
But she had other moments where she was quite happy and kind of off into her own world during
Yes.
certain scenes, and potentially scenes that, I don't know, may not have been. I mean, she certainly stole the show of the nativity scene as well.
Yeah, and she, I don't think that she intentionally stole any scenes. It was just that she was a dancer since she was born, and she loved it. And
Yeah.
she would dance around, and if she could see herself in a mirror or in a TV monitor that we were using at the time, she was fascinated watching herself. Not in a vain way, but she just liked dancing, and she could see how she was doing.
Yeah, because you had the camera hooked up to the TV, right?
Right.
Yeah, so it was like a little kind of personal mirror for her to see herself and
Exactly.
pose and dance, and she was just having a great time at it.
Yep, she was.
There was even a scene also where she was playing with some jingle bells. I don't really remember a whole lot, but I do remember the jingle bells. I think that Mom had that she used to hang on the Christmas tree or something like that, and maybe it was one of those deals. Do you remember any of the jingle bells scene?
No, I just remember what I've heard lately, and yeah, apparently she was having some fun with the jingle bells, and we captured a moment or two.
Yep. Well, let's see what the rest of the cast has to say about the 2-year-old that stole the show.
Right.
I think the most often thing that I think of when I think of the 1985 tape is I think of Rockin' Robin and how I was grumpy on the stool.
I do remember the dance, and Carrie, was she supposed to participate, or was she?
I remember Carrie and Kelly dancing to Rockin' Robin, although Carrie wasn't interested.
I did a dance to Rockin' Robin, and I did that dance with Carrie on a stool, and she had just woken up from a nap, and she's a little grumpy.
There was 2 parts. I seem to remember Kelly did it solo, and then Carrie was like feeling really grumpy that day and wanted to participate, and so it was take 2 with Carrie, but Carrie just stood there.
And so she just had her arms crossed, and she just sat there on the stool while I danced around her. And at the end of the dance, I was supposed to get both of our faces in frame, and that was challenging. And also, Carrie was not smiling. She was very grumpy.
I thought she was supposed to dance with Kelly, but wasn't having it, and so just stood there.
What I remember being told, I don't know if this is true, is like Kelly did it first alone, and that made me really upset because I wanted to do it. And then when they brought me in, I was still upset about not being involved in it. So I just was grumpy.
She was like, you know.
Because I feel like Carrie was an angel,
And I was standing on top of a stool to be like high above everybody. And I was just kind of like in my own little world, like tra la la, doing my own little thing.
On the angel part, she didn't seem grumpy. She was just very focused on, admiring herself.
Like looked at herself in the monitor and was like really taken with herself, and was like making faces and moving around and
adjusting her crown. And
So yeah, she was really enthralled with herself in that moment. The manger scene was no longer about Jesus.
I don't think it was necessarily a bit. I think in some downtime, I was just playing with some jingle bells, and Dad saw me playing and thought it was going to be fun to record me, so he recorded me. And I just remember sitting there jingling the bells, and then after a while, I was looking at it, and I was like looking like way inside the bells to see how they were doing it.
We also had a couple of music acts that were part of the Christmas movie as well. Leanne ended up playing the piano, and so did Kyle. I'm guessing that this kind of came because, we all at one point were taking piano lessons. It was kind of a rite of passage for us all, I think. But back then, I'm certain Leanne was taking piano lessons. Do you remember who else, if any of us were taking piano lessons back then?
Well, I guess I do have vague memories again, but if Leanne was taking lessons, and you certainly had lessons, and I believe Kelly had lessons, right?
Oh yeah, every last one of us did.
Kyle did, but I'm pretty sure Carrie did not.
Oh, she didn't. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Did she take dance instead or something?
Maybe that was the excuse, but she didn't get him for one reason or another. So yeah, piano lessons. Kind of like when I was a kid, I had piano lessons at a young age, 8 or so for 2 years, and as the story goes, I really didn't like it, and I was happy that I didn't have to go anymore after 2 years. But it made an impact eventually, and I took it up again, and I guess we felt like you kids needed it whether you liked it or not.
Yeah, like that rite of passage, right? I went through it. You will too.
That's right.
The day. Because I can tell you about that day. So, for my performance part of this video, I had to get up and practice it. I got up early in the morning and practiced because then I was dropped off at the library to do some school report. And then I was picked back up and I practiced some more.
I do remember that. I don't remember what song she played. I imagine it was a Christmas song, but I remember she played a song and that was sort of it.
Yes, I don't remember the. Yeah, I was practicing the piano. I do not remember what song it was though.
I thought it was Silent Night.
Stairway to Heaven, maybe. Oh, I remember I played the piano too. I can't remember exactly what I played, but I remember I came on the screen and I stood in front of the piano and said, I'm going to be playing blah, 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 blah. And I sat down at the piano and went, dee, 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 dee,
Yeah, somewhere in there is pretty good.
I remember the song I played on the piano now, Three Blind Mice.
Oh, Three Blind Mice sounds familiar, but I can't visualize it.
Like the very last part, I was, as it goes up, down, 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 and then on the last one, I was off by a note, and I had to correct and redo.
You guys had I guess it'd be Dad's jackets on or something.
You guys were in giant coats.
I remember you and I standing wearing very large coats for some reason.
For whatever reason, you guys were wearing Dad's coats. So really oversized coats. I have no idea why. But the one part I really remember was the disappearing ink. So Kyle had the disappearing ink pen that we got from the magic shop in the mall.
And you were trying to pull a prank on me or something with a pen.
And it was really funny because this is not something that shows up on camera particularly well. I don't even think that it worked.
I don't think the magic the magic pin thing worked, but
And so the sleeves were like, like this.
So he like hit your jacket with the disappearing ink, and then the camera zoomed in, but you couldn't really see anything happening. And so it was sort of a like, ta-da.
I don't really remember much about the magic part. I just remember the jokes. And I think I only remember the one joke, really, because I thought it was hilarious.
And I think there was that knock knock joke that you made up, Darren. I think that's who you made it up.
I remember the joke that you told.
Knock, knock.
who's there?
Orange.
Oh, I do remember that. Orange who? Orange who? Orange, is it orange? You glad I didn't say banana? Is that how it goes?
No, you
No?
can say a different word first, and you
I
keep
don't
saying the
remember.
same word like 5 times, and then you say orange.
Hey,
Aren't you glad I didn't say the other word?
This is my joke. First off.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Orange, you hungry for Burger King now?
Orange, you hungry for Burger King now?
Orange, you hungry for Burger King now?
Yeah, so I really kind of don't remember much about the magic trick, but yeah, I do recall a lot of what was described about the magic act that Kyle performed. And I remember probably a little more the joke, the famous joke that Darren invented or claims to have.
I think I did. You know how memories go. I think I did. You know, there was a big kind of jingle at the time that for Burger King that would just be like, aren't you hungry for Burger King today? And so that's kind of where the joke came from. It probably would not make sense to anybody who did not live through that jingle, but it was a Burger King jingle.
It was a familiar line from commercials.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And I don't remember really much of the magic acts. I think everybody remembers the disappearing ink thing much better than I do. I certainly remember the big coat that we were wearing that Kyle talked about and everybody talked about.
Why the big coats? I don't
know.
I don't know why.
Yeah. Because it was awesome, I suppose. Yeah, I don't really know. Do you remember even who came up with that segment? How did that segment come about? Do you remember it all?
My guess is just organic in the sense that Kyle was playing with a magic trick at the time. Oh, let's include it. Darren had a joke he was proud of. Oh, let's do it.
Oh, okay. So it was Kyle that did the disappearing ink thing.
I'm pretty sure, especially based on the fact that you had the joke. So it makes sense that Kyle would have had the other part.
Yeah, that would make sense. That makes sense. Well, the other scene that we did was the nativity scene. And that
this scene took a lot of work, more so than, hey, get up there and do your magic trick and tell a joke. We had to plan this out.
Yeah. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, what can I say? I have a poor memory, but this is where Mom would have been heavily involved in making sure we all had the, not we all, but you all had the proper costumes and props, and that everybody had a part.
Mm-hmm.
And then and I guess there was a reading so that you could sort of loosely act out what was happening during the narrative.
Yeah, I mean, they're, at least from most folks' memory, I ended up playing Joseph in the nativity scene, and Kelly was Mary, and Kyle was a shepherd, and Carrie was an angel with a gold, wreath over her head of some sort. And Leanne is a little bit, up in the air from a memory standpoint. There's one memory that I tend to agree with. I seem to think that she was at least reading some of the Christmas story from the Bible. I can see that. I can visualize that in my head as happening. I don't know why, but it does make sense to me.
I'm sure we would have selected in Luke pretty much the same section that reads in the Peanuts Christmas special. The typical nativity or Christmas story from Luke. So yeah, that would make sense that she would have read that. I hope that's the way it was. Maybe someday we'll find out for sure by finding the tape.
And yep. And then we did have to get a little creative, in some areas. We ended up using a Cabbage Patch doll.
Oh yeah,
that were very popular at the time. I mean,
right.
They were all the rage, and we used that as a prop for baby Jesus.
Yes.
And there may have been one of the more infamous overacting performances.
Yes, even I recall that. It was a little.
Do you?
Yeah.
What do you remember?
I remember. Well, like others have called it, I don't know. Darren was just trying to perform his role, and was consoling baby Jesus by rubbing his head constantly.
The nativity manger scene.
I seem to remember like Kelly was Mary and we had a Cabbage Patch doll for Jesus.
Because Darren was Joseph and Kelly was Mary.
Well, epically, baby Jesus was played by a Cabbage Patch doll. More specifically, a preemie, so like a bald Cabbage Patch doll that I believe was Leanne's. We both had them, but I think Leanne's became the star of the manger.
It was my Cabbage Patch doll. I'm gonna have to look this up because I'm pretty sure I still have that Cabbage Patch birth certificate in my treasure box. But I remembered the name being like Xavier, but I don't know if I'm right.
Wrapped in a blanket, and I was Mary. Darren, you were Joseph. I think. Well, Carrie must have just been an angel, and Kyle was one of the wise men, maybe.
I was wearing a towel on my head with a headband at one point because I was a shepherd.
For me, the thing I really, really remember is Darren holding baby Jesus. He was polishing baby Jesus' head the entire time.
And Darren, you were obsessively rubbing baby Jesus / Cabbage Patch doll's bald head.
And you really liked Jesus's head. You would like rub it right. I think you were just gonna rub it right off.
Holding the baby. So,
and it was hilarious and weird.
And I remember Leanne reading a story very seriously. Yeah. Like she was reading a scripture from the.
Was she reading Luke, the Christmas story itself? Okay.
Yes, that was it.
One of the highlights of the movie was the reading of "'Twas the Night Before Christmas."
Yes.
I'm sure that was Mom's idea. She was very much into poems. She was even into Shakespeare. She liked literature, and so why not have us, or at least someone, read "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," and then there'd be various scenes that we could allude to during the reading. There was children nestled in their beds, so there'd be all you kids nestled and sleeping without opening your eyes. And of course, there was the homemade stockings hanging from the mantle above the fireplace. I think that was part of the scenery when we were reading. And there's the, I think, kind of cool scene, if not also cheesy, of Santa and the chimney.
Yeah, this feels like it was probably one of the more the one of the more traditional things that we did as a family. I feel like Mom almost every year, especially when we were younger, would read the "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" poem. It was kind of her thing, and I remember that being a thing for many years. I don't know when it kind of stopped, but probably once we got older. But it was, I think that was more or less a pretty much standard tradition at our house. Do you remember it that way, or am I making that up?
No, I would agree with that. Yeah.
That said, the ideas for all of the little scenes within that montage, if you will, feels very much like you.
It probably was, like, oh, I could do this. Oh, I could
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
Now, the Santa one, I remember a little bit more about. I remember it being sort of a technical challenge to me. How do I make it look like Santa went up the chimney? Well, in the end, the technology wasn't there to do it justice, but I did what I could.
Yeah. Yeah. It was great. Yeah, let's see what everybody else remembers.
I believe Mom was narrating it, and I remember her just like talking in the background.
Mom read the whole poem, so she kind of did the voiceover of the whole thing throughout the sections.
Oh yeah, weren't we all like we were all sleeping on the floor together and somebody couldn't keep their eyes closed?
Remember, mainly, there's a scene where we're all supposed to be asleep,
And then I remember like there was a part where we were all of us kids were supposed to be pretending to be asleep, with the visions of sugar plums dancing in our heads kind of thing. But we were all really bad at pretending to sleep. Like as the camera panned across all of us, we definitely were smirking and like kind of squinting our eyes, trying to like pretend. Like, it was really bad.
We weren't very good at it. I especially remember like in the video, you pan to me and my eyes would close and then open and then close and then open and then close.
And I know that we had to do multiple takes because somebody always opened their eyes. And then Dad had to cut and we had to start over.
I mean, I maybe I don't remember it well enough, but didn't we just like pan across the stockings hung across the Mom's cool homemade stockings? Those were so cool.
I do remember the part where Santa went up because we were all laying down right in front of the fireplace.
The best part was like there was this part we had a real fireplace and a real chimney, and we also had this little tiny like he was like this big Santa figurine, and there was a part where Mom and Dad filmed Santa in the chimney, and then they cut to the chimney being empty when he rose up the chimney. So that was some really cutting edge editing.
Camera tricks. And he went to the chimney and then pause. And he ran away. Unpause. And he disappeared.
So I don't remember a ton of the "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." I certainly remember it, but certainly some of the others remembers a lot more details than I do. But what I can kind of imagine is that this had to be very challenging for you to shoot all of the little different scenes within this reading.
It was challenging, but it was a fun challenge, because I just like the idea of figuring things out and seeing what I could do and be a filmmaker.
Yeah.
So it was fun to have this brand new technology out to play with. there were, I'm sure there were a lot of technical challenges. How do I hook this up? How do I get the video monitor up so we can see what's going on? That would be cool to do. And yeah, a lot of little things like that. You just heard people talk about the Santa scene, which I mentioned earlier, and a lot of people remember that as there being a toy Santa in the fireplace, and then he just disappeared. The idea, of course, was to be the Santa in the fireplace, and then I stopped the video camera, took him out, and the implication was that he flew up the chimney, but it also could be interpreted as he just disappeared.
Well, and see, I remember, didn't we so you started with the toy Santa right here, start the video, pause, move him up a little bit, start the video, pause, move him up a little bit, right? Until
I think that was the original attempt, but it wasn't working out, and we'll never know unless we find the tape. But I think it turned out to be he was hanging by a string, and then he wasn't there.
Just magic.
Or it could be that the incremental rising of Santa happened so quickly that it never really showed up on the video.
It never really showed up, and there's really no way to test it. It was just kind of start and stop, right? That was it back then.
See what happens.
That had to have been a blast though to play with. I can just see you. That is right up your alley to just be playing with that kind of newer technology to see what you could do.
See what we could do. See if we could be creative. And the kid. And when we got it produced, then we had to make copies. And I don't know how I did that. We probably had 2 VHS machines and hooked them together, and just that would have been a slow process because you'd have to. I don't know how long the movie was, but if it was 20 minutes, you'd have to dedicate 20 minutes to each copy because there's no other way to do it.
Yep.
So every copy costs you 20 minutes a time at least. And then some of you have started referring to it as kind of a Christmas letter or something in lieu of a Christmas letter. And that's kind of the way I remember it, that, obviously we didn't make it just for ourselves. I guess not so obviously, but that I remembered it being something we made copies with, and then we sent it out to certain people like Grandpa Betts and Grandma Betts, and maybe some friends like the Calls. I mean, why not? Why shouldn't they get one? We borrowed their camera.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Probably want to see the finished product, right? So what'd you guys do?
Yeah. I don't know how many copies were made or who got them, but until we find someone who happens to have preserved it, we're working on memory only here.
Well, I know it's for Christmas, but then I was like, did it get sent to people?
It was a Christmas letter from the Black Cat family.
Yeah, the tape was definitely to make multiple copies of and send out to mostly relatives and probably a few friends that were, in other areas of the country, or even I would assume we sent them to family in Canada as well, because I think that was the whole purpose, was sort of like a version of what we've been up to throughout the year and showing off our talents to family. It's kind of a version of the letter that usually goes out at Christmas. I assume the Calls watched it, but I don't remember what their feedback was, if anything.
I kind of recall seeing it at the Sequoia House. I kind of remember oh, James hasn't seen the video. Let's show the video. And of course, I'm like, these people are weird.
And I mentioned sending one to Grandpa Betts. I do. The reason I'm pretty sure we sent one to him because he would visit pretty much once a year, and I don't know if it was a phone conversation or if it's actually a visit that he made down. He would sometimes visit in the winter. So, but I remember him being a little bit of a critic of the opening scene that I eventually hated seeing. So, I don't know if he was the only critic, but he was a critic, and he was not shy about saying things like that. So, So he must have got one.
He must have
I'm
got
sure.
one. Yeah.
I'm sure others did too.
Do you remember him saying anything else, or was that just the
I
opening
don't.
scene that?
He may have said other things, but of course I was focused on the critical remark about my opening scene.
Did he say my shattered nerves or anything?
I don't think he went that far.
Not that far. So it wasn't a terrible review.
I think the gist of what he said was it was just really corny and silly, which it was.
And then you just say, "That's the idea."
I wish I would have.
So the good news is though is that if we did send this out to a lot of people, maybe there's a possibility that the tape still exists somewhere.
We have some ideas. The calls may have one.
Yeah.
My brothers and sisters, at least some of them, may have gotten the tape. But there's been a lot of time passed, so
There is.
what happens to VHS tapes. They get stuck on a shelf, and eventually someone says, "Well, we don't need those anymore," and throws them out without maybe even looking at what the tapes are. And so I don't know. We will definitely ask around to see if there's someone that still has one. But so far,
Yep.
we do know that Kelly had one copy, and then Leanne had one copy, and it's gone back and forth about who had it last, I think. And but there's been so many moves, it's hard to know what box it ended up in, and so on.
It's been a long time, so and who knows if even it does get recovered, if it's in good working condition type of scenario.
That's exactly right.
This Christmas 1985 video clearly had a huge impact on my life. A lot of other videos when my kids were young, and one that I remember was again the Nativity, where Chandler was like holding the baby, and the baby was Emma. No, I don't remember, but Emma was just like crying, just screaming, crying. And it's a good thing that I muted the video and had voiceover, because she was just like,
Especially like there was one instance that Ray was doing, had to do a video book report about a book she was reading. And so I made her do the opening that Dad did, where she was reading the book she was supposed to be talking about, and then, put it down and be like, "Hello, I didn't see you there. I was just reading this great book, This is the book I read. This is what it was." And the teacher like really shouted out to Ray, like, "I love how creative you were with the book report, and it was a nice, refreshing change to see, So I'm like, oh, so it was very successful.
So this book was given to me by Mom, probably about 15 years ago. And I have read it in all of my kids' classes, usually second and third grade, when they were in those grades.
I feel like it just sort of reinforced really like the fun that we as a family had, I guess I would say. It's sort of like this was a visual representation, but we often did a lot of sort of family get-togethers that were funny and goofy like this, and just amounted to good times and good memories.
Yeah, I think it did. I mean, I feel like it was, my first experience that I kind of remember of the family doing fun things like that. And that was always like the epitome of the family is, Mom and Dad were very creative with the activities they did for us. And, that was like one of them, right?
that kind of makes sense. I mean, I don't remember that, but I didn't remember that until you mentioned it, but years and years and years later, when Chandler was like 4 or something, and we were having Christmas at your house, I remember using that and saying, "Hey Chandler, I got a great idea." And so I set it to record, and then after we went to bed, I hit pause, and then crawled into the fireplace wearing a Santa suit, and then hit record, crawled out of the fireplace, and then put all the presents under the tree and was looking around like Santa Claus, and Santa Claus spotted the camera, went up to the camera real close and was like, and turned off the camera. And the next morning I said, "Oh, Chandler, let's go check." And he looked at it, and it was just like, just like the little kid exploding on Christmas moment. It was pretty cool. So apparently I got that whole inspiration from you.
I mean, I think we're a very creative family, and I think we owe a lot of our creativity to mom and dad because they were very creative people.
One of the other things that I think was really cool when we were doing these interviews was listening to how much this inspired everybody that was involved. Even though we were very young, we were so very young, it seems to have stuck with a lot of folks, and they have fond memories, and it affected their lives on into adulthood and with their kids and all that. I thought that was the neatest thing about this little episode that we're doing.
I agree. And this wasn't the last Christmas video we made, but this was the most special. The original one was the best.
Yeah, this was the first, right?
Right.
Yeah. Did you know it at the time that this was going to be the greatest Christmas movie ever?
Not at all. Not until I saw the box office returns.
Well, what other final thoughts do you have, Dad? What other things do you want to say about the movie, or any of the cast, or any of the scenes?
Well, I'm just really glad we did it now. I have an uncomfortable memory, but I'm really pleased that everyone has good memories overall of the. It was a good time in our family history. Everybody was at the good age for doing things like this. So, yeah, I'm thrilled that it's still remembered and we can talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know, so like we shot it probably before Christmas, I would assume, since it went out to folks.
Sure.
Do you know how long this thing took to kind of, film, or was it a day thing or many days or?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it was just one day. I don't know why it would have gone over a day. I mean, we probably just, most of it was almost off the cuff. Go play your piano piece, and do your magic act, and there was the things that required a little effort were it was the night before Christmas reading and the nativity, but that wouldn't have been that hard. We would have taken, a little time up to an hour beforehand and say, okay, we're ready, and done it. So yeah, I'm sure it was just one day.
Yeah.
One afternoon and evening, whatever.
Yeah, Kyle had a comment when we were talking to him about how we were all so young, and this was such a new thing for us, right? We didn't grow up with a video camera, that we were probably all really excited and clamoring to find ways to kind of get on camera and in whatever way that we could. And I don't really necessarily remember that, but I tend to agree. I remember the energy, like just a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of excitement around just putting that all together.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was just I guess it's just a kind of a milestone memory for a lot of us growing up. So it was great.
Yeah, I'm glad it was. It was a lot of fun. Mom had a lot to do with the creativity in it, and it was great.
Yep. Well, I think that's
A
the
wrap?
end of our. That's a wrap. Yeah. Should we do the wrap just like the Christmas movie? Did anybody call cut at the end of it? Was there a
What?
cast party? Was there a cast party afterwards,
I'm sure there was.
or it was straight to bed?
No. I'll bet Mom had some cookies or whatever going for us.
But she did. Bye, pups. Merry Christmas.
Bye, Darren. Merry Christmas back to you. Oh, hi. And Merry Christmas. That might be reminiscent of a Christmas past. Now let's do something that may bring back another memory by reading 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. I'll start. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there.
The children were nestled all snug in their beds,
while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads.
And Mama in her kerchief and I and my cat had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap.
When out on the roof there arose such a clatter,
I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter.
and to the window I flew like a flash.
Tore open the shutter and threw up the sash.
The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave the luster of midday to objects below.
When what to my wandering eyes should appear
but a miniature sleigh, 8 tiny reindeer.
With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick.
More rapid than eagles his coursers they came.
He whistled and shouted and called them by name.
Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen. On Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen.
To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash your way, dash your way, dash your way all.
As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle mount to the sky.
So up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys and St. Nicholas too.
Then in a twinkling I heard on the roof
the prancing and pawing of each little hoof.
As I drew in my head and was turning around,
down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound.
He was dressed in all fur from his head to his foot,
and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot.
A bundle of toys he had flung on his back,
and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack.
His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry.
His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry.
His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow.
and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow.
The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth.
And the smoke it encircled his head like a reef.
He had a broad face and a little round belly.
That shook while he laughed, like a bowl full of jelly.
He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf.
And I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself.
A wink of his eye and a twist of his head.
Soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread.
He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work.
And filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk.
And laying his finger on side of his nose and giving a nod, up the chimney make it so.
He sprang to his sleigh.
To his team gave a whistle.
And away they all flew.
Like the down of a thistle.
But I heard him exclaim ere he drove out of sight.
Happy Christmas to all.
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 Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
And to all a good night.